In June 2025, the city of Los Angeles found itself at the epicenter of a storm, one fueled by fear, outrage, and the profound anxieties that ripple through communities when policy and humanity collide. The spark was a series of intensified immigration raids conducted by U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement, or ICE. But the fire that followed illuminated issues that had long simmered beneath the surface. The debate over national security, the meaning of belonging, and the rights of all who call America home. It began with a quiet tension that soon became impossible to ignore. In neighborhoods across Los Angeles, where the hum of daily life is carried on the voices of families from every corner of the globe, word spread quickly. ICE was expanding its operations. What had previously targeted individuals with criminal records now grew to include workplace sweeps, netting men and women whose only crime was seeking a better life. Suddenly, every knock on the door, every unfamiliar car idling on the street, became a source of dread. Fear settled over immigrant communities like a heavy fog, blurring the lines between those who were documented and those who were not. Businesses, especially those owned by Hispanic entrepreneurs, felt the impact almost immediately. At the bustling produce markets that are the lifeblood of the city's central district, foot traffic dwindled to a trickle. Owners watched as regular customers, once the familiar faces of friends and neighbors, disappeared overnight. "It's worse than COVID," one vendor confided, describing the empty stalls and the silence where laughter and conversation once filled the air. For many, the economic devastation was not just a matter of lost income, but a stark reminder of how quickly fear can unravel the fabric of a community. As anxiety mounted, so too did the sense of injustice. In parks, on street corners, and in front of City Hall, people gathered to give voice to their anger and their grief. What began as peaceful demonstrations, marches for dignity, vigils for those detained, soon grew in size and intensity. Chants echoed through downtown streets, calling for an end to what activists decried as draconian enforcement and the criminalization of entire communities. The faces in the crowd were as diverse as the city itself: students, workers, families, and longtime Angelenos standing shoulder to shoulder with recent arrivals. But the protests could not be contained by calls for peace alone. As dusk fell on the city, a different energy took hold. Frustration, stoked by years of debate and disappointment, boiled over. Clashes broke out between demonstrators and law enforcement. Shop windows were shattered, and some businesses, already struggling from weeks of lost revenue, became targets for looters. The images that flashed across televisions and social media feeds were stark and unsettling. Flames rising against the night sky, streets choked with tear gas, and the relentless wail of sirens. In response, Los Angeles Mayor Karen Bass declared a state of emergency. A curfew was imposed on downtown neighborhoods, at first starting at 8 p.m. and later pushed back to 10 p.m., as city officials tried to strike a balance between public safety and the right to protest. The city's police force was bolstered by the arrival of thousands of National Guard troops and hundreds of Marines, a show of force reminiscent of other chapters in the city's turbulent history. The presence of military vehicles and armed soldiers on city streets drew its own share of controversy. Some saw it as necessary to restore order. Others viewed it as an escalation, a sign of a government willing to use overwhelming power against its own people. For families already living in fear, the sight of camouflage uniforms and checkpoints only deepened the sense of siege. The unrest in Los Angeles did not go unnoticed beyond the city's borders. Demonstrations spread to cities like Denver and Aurora, Colorado, as activists nationwide voiced their opposition to what they saw as a coordinated campaign against immigrants. Across the country, debates raged over the role of ICE, the limits of federal authority, and the enduring question of who gets to claim the promise of America. Internationally, the events in Los Angeles sent shockwaves through diplomatic circles. Several governments issued travel warnings, advising their citizens to exercise caution if visiting the city. The world watched as one of America's great metropolises grappled with issues that transcend borders, questions of identity, inclusion, and the sometimes painful path toward justice. Inside the city itself, the effects were deeply personal. For some, the week of unrest was a time of reckoning, a moment to confront the policies and prejudices that had shaped their lives. For others, it was a period of profound uncertainty, when every decision carried new risks and every day brought new worries. Parents debated whether to send children to school, workers weighed the prospect of a paycheck against the possibility of arrest. Community leaders scrambled to provide legal aid, shelter, and reassurance, even as they struggled to keep up with the sheer scale of the crisis. Amid the chaos, stories of resilience and solidarity emerged. Volunteers organized food drives for families too afraid to leave their homes. Faith groups opened their doors as sanctuaries, offering a haven from both the raids and the unrest. Local leaders implored residents to stand together, reminding them that the city's strength lies in its diversity and its capacity for compassion. As the days wore on, the violence subsided, but the wounds remained raw. The curfew was eventually eased and the military presence scaled back. Yet the events of June 2025 left an indelible mark on Los Angeles, a city shaped by waves of migration, by dreams and disappointments, by the ever-shifting balance between hope and hardship. In the aftermath, a deeper conversation began to take shape. What kind of city did Angelenos want to build? How could they ensure that the mistakes of the past would not be repeated? And what would it take to turn a moment of crisis into an opportunity for healing and change? The answers, as always, would not come easily. But for those who lived through the riots of 2025, the lessons were clear. That fear can divide, but courage can unite. That the struggle for justice is never finished, and that in the face of adversity, the true measure of a city is found not in its moments of calm, but in how it responds when the storm arrives. Los Angeles, battered but unbroken, emerged from that summer with its spirit tested, and with a renewed determination to ensure that all its people have a place in the story of America.